So, it's 1912. The U.S. is on the brink of opening the Panama Canal, truly a wonder of the modern world. But here's the thing. Digging the canal was only half the battle. How do you actually run a global shortcut? That's what we're going to dive into today by looking at the one document that wrote all the rules, the Panama Canal Act. I mean, that was the billion-dollar question, right? You can't just open the locks and cross your fingers. No way. You need laws, a government, a police force, courts. You need a whole business plan. And somehow, this one single act had to answer all of those questions and basically create a new American territory from scratch, right in the heart of Central America. Okay, so first things first, who's the boss? The act had to lay that out, and not just for the waterway itself, but for the entire 50-mile-long territory around it, the Canal Zone. And the solution they came up with was a really clear top-down system of American power. To really get how concentrated this power was, you gotta look at this. Section 4 of the Act created a single, incredibly powerful executive, the governor of the Panama Canal. And listen, this wasn't some mayor. This was a virtual king, appointed by the president in charge of literally everything that happened in the zone. The chain of command couldn't have been simpler. All the power flowed straight from the White House to the governor. And to back up that power, they established a brand new American federal court system right there on the isthmus, completely wiping out the old legal structures. This new legal framework was basically a two-tiered system. You see, Sections 7 and 8 set up these local magistrates' courts for all the minor stuff. But for anything serious, we're talking felonies, big lawsuits, you were going straight to the powerful district court. The real takeaway here? From top to bottom, American law was now the only law in the Canal Zone, period. But of course, the canal wasn't just some political project. It was a massive business venture. This law had to spell out exactly how this incredible piece of engineering was going to pay for itself and hopefully turn a profit for the United States. And here it is, the magic number. Section 5 gave the president the power to set the tolls, but it put a cap on the price for commercial ships, $1.25 per net registered ton. That number? That became the financial bedrock for the canal's entire operation for decades to come. But here's where things got really controversial. The very same section had this little clause tucked inside. It gave American ships sailing between American ports, say from New York to San Francisco, a complete free pass, no tolls. International competitors, especially Great Britain, were furious. They saw this as a total violation of treaties that promised equal access for everyone, and it kicked off a huge diplomatic firestorm. And the business didn't just stop with the tolls. Oh no. Section 6 was basically a license to print money. It gave the U.S. government the green light to run all these other businesses. So a ship didn't just pass through. It could refuel, get repairs, restock, all from U.S.-owned businesses. The Canal Zone pretty much became a one-stop shop, a full-service commercial hub. Now this brings us to what might be the most fascinating part of this whole law. It wasn't just about running a canal. It was about using the canal as a tool to enforce American economic policy on the entire world. You have to remember, this was the peak of the progressive era, and America was basically at war with corporate monopolies, the so-called trusts. The big fear was that giants, like the railroad empires, could use their power to choke off competition, and the canal was a brand new, very tempting choke point. So the question for lawmakers was pretty clear. How do you stop a massive corporation from dominating this new global shortcut? Well, their answer was to build America's antitrust laws right into the canal's operating manual. Okay, so this is the actual legal language from Section 11. It's dense, right? It specifically goes after the most powerful corporations of the time, the railroad barons. It's a bit of a mouthful, so what does it actually mean? There it is, plain and simple. The U.S. government was worried that a powerful railroad like the Union Pacific could just buy a steamship company, hike up the prices for going through the canal, and make it cheaper for companies to just stick with their cross-country trains. This rule was designed to force competition and make sure the canal was always a viable and affordable option. And it wasn't just about the railroads. The same section took it even further. It basically said that any ship that was owned, chartered, or in any way controlled by a company that was violating the Sherman Antitrust Act, America's main weapon against monopolies, was flat out banned from using the canal. So a company like Standard Oil, which had recently been broken up, couldn't just use its giant fleet to dominate canal traffic. The message was loud and clear. If you want to use our canal, you're going to play by our rules. So with all this political and economic power wrapped up in the canal, protecting the actual physical structure was absolutely critical. The government put in some incredibly strict rules and some really severe punishments to make sure this vital American asset was secure. The thing to notice here is just how severe these penalties were. As Section 10 laid out, just breaking a simple regulation could get you a year in jail. But if you willfully did something to obstruct the canal or its locks, that was a felony, and you were looking at up to 20 years in prison. And if your sabotage caused someone to die, it was treated as murder. They were not messing around. The document even included a kill switch, so to speak. Section 13 gave the president the authority to hand over total and complete control of the canal and the entire canal zone to the U.S. Army in wartime. The civilian governor would suddenly be reporting to a military general. This made sure that in a national emergency, the canal would instantly become a strategic military asset. So, what does all this add up to? The Panama Canal Act wasn't just some boring set of bylaws. It was the founding constitution for an American colony, and it was the blueprint for American economic and military power in the 20th century. For almost 85 years, right up until the Torrijos-Carter treaties led to the handover in 1999, this one document was the ultimate source of American authority over one of the most important strips of land on the entire planet. It defined the government, the economy, and the security of a global crossroads. And that really leaves us with a final thought. By writing all the rules, the United States didn't just run a canal, it projected its power and its values all across the globe. It just raises this huge question. What does it really mean for one country to hold the keys to the world's commerce? Definitely something to think about.